Back in 1994, Subaru had the brilliant idea of taking the legacy wagon, jacking it up on a raised suspension, and calling it a crossover. The so-called Outback sold 200,000 units. Now, 2 million units later, we meet the 6th generation. Now, the 2020 Subaru Outback's mission hasn't changed very much, but this is a completely different vehicle than it was 25 years ago. Let's hop behind the wheel and see what's new. The 2020 Outback is now based on Subaru's global platform, like the rest of the automaker's vehicles like the Ascent and the Forester. Also, like the Forester, Subaru's taken an ain't broke, don't fix it approach to the size of this vehicle, so it hasn't grown very much since the last model year. In fact, the wheelbase is only a fraction of an inch longer. Yet somehow Subaru has also managed to cram a lot more space for people and cargo into this thing, which means it'll be just as easy to park, but you'll be able to carry a whole lot more stuff wherever you go. Something else that hasn't changed, just getting a little bit of a workout today, is the off-road capability. Now, we've still got the same 8.7 inches of ground clearance as we had in the previous generation, and the generous approach and departure angles. That, combined with Subaru's standard symmetrical all-wheel drive system, kind of the whole point of this brand, and the X-Mode off-road programming means that we're making short work of this HEV trail we're tackling today.
Now under the hood, we've got a 2.5-liter Boxer 4-cylinder engine. That's an all-new engine for 2020. It's naturally aspirated and features direct injection. It makes 184 horsepower, 176 pound-feet of torque, and fuel economy is better than before.
Now, it's going to put that power through a standard continuously variable transmission, which is kind of why the fuel economy is better than before, and that also does a pretty good job of feeling fairly smooth on the road. Speaking of the road, the on-road performance is actually also a little bit better. The driver's looking for a little more oomph to consider the other new engine for this generation, a 2.4-liter turbocharged 4-cylinder engine. That's going to replace the old 6-cylinder 3.6 for the previous generation, but it ups the Outback's potency to 260 horsepower and 277 pound-feet of torque, which is a significant upgrade over the base model of this generation. Now, the move to the new platform means that the 2020 Outback has a much stiffer chassis, and that means that the suspension can operate more precisely. And more precisely, it does. It feels a lot more controlled, mostly due to the new double wishbone setup that we've got up front that aids in control over bumps and helps the car feel a little bit stickier when you're in the corners. There's also a general improvement in refinement and reduction in noise overall, which makes it a lot easier to live with this generation of the Outback. Now, speaking of being easier to live with, there's a lot of new technology in the dashboard of this generation of the Outback, starting with this massive 11-inch touchscreen in the dashboard. It's got a vertical orientation, and it's powered by the newest generation of Subaru's Starlink infotainment and telematics software. Now, it uses TomTom maps for navigation, so if you go into the map, you see a massive vertical map that shows you a nice view down the road. But if you don't like that, Android Auto and Apple CarPlay are standard, so you can just plug into USB and bring your own maps and apps along the way. Now, another cool feature is that this does feature Subaru's new driver focus system, an infrared set of cameras on the dashboard that watch the driver's face to make sure that I'm not drowsy or distracted. As a nice bonus for keeping an eye on me, it also powers a driver facial recognition system that allows me to do things like store my seating positions and favorite presets, and when I get in the car, it'll automatically recognize me and differentiate me from anybody else who will be driving. Now, we've also got camera-based technology pointing outside of the car in the form of the Subaru EyeSight driver aid system. Now, those two cameras looking forward are watching the road, and they're going to power driver aid features like adaptive cruise control, which now works all the way down to stop and go traffic, and a lane centering steering assist that we're not really using today because I kind of want to enjoy this nice bit of twisty road. Now, the thing that I like about this Outback is kind of the same thing that I like about the 2019 Forester, and that's that Subaru took a very close look at the DNA of that vehicle, the things that people already really liked about it, and they didn't change those things. They just made them a little bit better for this new generation and made the vehicle a lot easier to live with smart applications of technology. But this is still just the first drive, and we got to put a lot more miles on this bad boy before I can decide whether I'm truly in love with it or not. You can check our full review on theroadshow.com. It should be live now. Head on over there to find out what I think. Of course, one of the main reasons the Outback is Subaru's best-selling model is its outstanding value, and that hasn't changed very much for 2020. It still starts at around $27,000 and tops out at around $40K. And with more features, more space, and more safety than before, it's an even better value.